What's happening, everyone?
Okay, that's all
Swading's
the
here.
checks completed. You're
Uh,
ready to go.
yeah, this is a bit of a different video for myself. This is going to be F1 My Career mode. Um, no assists, no racing line or anything like that. 100 AI. We'll eventually bump it up to 110, but we're getting there. But yeah, this is round 2 at Jeddah. Unfortunately, I lost the footage from Bahrain. Um, but we are currently 6 in the standings. I was unable to get a screenshot of the standings just because I was already in this race whenever I did it. Before I recorded, excuse me. So, um, yeah, I want to. Hopefully, I can make these videos. I know they're a bit long, but hopefully, I can make them as interesting as possible. Most of the video is mostly just qualifying, just because that's the fastest lap times you'll see. The race is kind of is actually really cut up, so I try to keep them as short as I can, but they're still pretty long. So if you watch the whole thing, I greatly appreciate it. But yeah, going out into Q1 here for our first run, just kind of scrubbing the tires a little bit and taking it easy. We'll probably jump on here in a second. Here we go. So going into our first run here of Q1, just going to kind of commentate what's going through my head when I'm doing. So obviously here just scrubbing the tires and going to go ahead and get myself the best, widest line uh, for the front straight here. So yeah, our first run. This lap's going to probably be pretty cautious. Just want to make sure we get a banker lap in, more or less. We don't need to go and validate in these lap times just simply because we just want to get into Q2, and it really shouldn't take a lot. Getting a little bit of wheel spin there out of the chicane, but taking this nice and wide, really on the limit. Really surprised I didn't get a lot of track limits, but this game is very RNG, as I'm sure a lot of people know. So yeah, you never really know when you're going to get an off track or wheel spin or anything like that in this game, unfortunately. So running a first hot sector, looking like on the map it's lighting up purple. I am colorblind, so I apologize. But yeah, so far, not a terrible lap. Obviously, I'm not an esports driver, so not the best driver in the world, but I try to be as smooth and as good as I possibly can be. Going through Sector 2. I don't know what any of these turns are called. I don't even know if they have names just because Jeddah's a street circuit. Barely catching the apex there if we even did. But like I said, just a really cautious lap overall. Wasn't really trying to push it too much on the limit. Just trying to be cautious and get the car to the finish. And get the best time we can for a banker, more or less. And just get ourselves into Q2. If we can avoid having to go out for a second run in Q1, we definitely will and want to. And depending on what we run here, we run a 129.554, which is a fastest lap of the race, and will actually get us into Q2, as you can see there. Charles Leclerc just edging us out by about 200ths. Sergio Perez in third, and Max Verstappen in fourth. Biggest rivals this season, obviously, is going to be our teammate in Red Bull. Mercedes is never anything to claw at, and Lando Norris is really fast in F1. So going into Q2. Was able to save a set of softs, so we're going to be going out on a U set here to try and save another set for Q3. So this is our U set run here. Going to just try and run, again, a banker lap and just get another lap on the board so that way we don't have to worry about, in our second run, not invalidating and taking it more cautious and not getting us really anywhere. But this first chicane, horrible exit, and even a horrible chicane, really going slow through there, almost like watching a snail. Again, doing this decently, really on the limit. No clue how I wasn't getting invalidations here. But nonetheless, getting through it. This used run is looking really sloppy, and if I remember correctly, it was just really hard to get the car turned in. Obviously, like we said, these are used tires, so gonna be a little more worn than the newer ones, but nonetheless, we move. Ooh, really wide, missing the apex by a country mile, but somehow recovering it somewhat decently. Again, just trying to get the car across the line in one piece and not invalidated. We just want to get a run in, so that way, if we do invalidate on our second lap, we at least have something that can potentially get us through into Q3. Missing opening the DRS there, which is not going to help on this lap at all. And yeah, coming into the final turn now. Really wide line, really hard to get the car turned and get any sort of grip. Once the softs on this game, as everyone knows, are just really bad. And that lap is going to be a 129.820. So that's going to obviously lead us to come out again. Right here, I don't know what Joe was doing, but nonetheless, into second run of Q2. And this is on the new set. Already getting a little bit of lap time on the front straight from a better exit. Breaking just a little bit after the 100 board, basically at the 75. Getting a much better exit in a chicane. Really clean, gaining a lot of lap time there. Braking at the 75, turning the car in. Again, really on the limit there. Pushing through this, one of my favorite parts of any circuit. Really tricky, but, you know, really shows what F1 cars are made of nowadays with the aerodynamics. Taking that amazingly 300s up now, or whatever it is. Running what looks to be, again, a purple sector. I can't really tell. Nonetheless, we are flying. Getting another beautiful exit, really using all the track. Getting the apex and really close to the wall. This run is a lot more on the limit. Really pushing hard here, as you can tell by the delta. Getting a lot of time. 700s up. What is our sector 2 going to be? It should show us. Looks, I can't tell if it's purple. It doesn't look like the track's lit up, so it might be a green one. Into sector 3 though. Taking the fastest line we possibly can. Braking at the 75. Getting the car nice and rotated. Barely skimming the apex. Tapping the wall on the exit, but that shouldn't bother us any. Almost a whole second up, and we're going to run. What is that? What a lap. Oh, that just came together beautifully. Let's go. And yeah, as you can hear there, we're really excited with that. We ran the fastest lap of 128.862, which I believe is close to my personal best. I mean, it's a full second off, but it's still close. So, nonetheless, really happy with that in Q2. Into Q3. Again, going out on the U set to just get that banker lap in. We wanted to try and use the new set of tires at the very end when the grip levels will be at their absolute best. So yeah, going in, we're going to be braking just after the 100, getting the car turned. Nice apex here, nice apex there. Little wide on the exit, but no wheel spin again, so we move. Braking at the 75, getting the car turned in. A little cautious here, because we know that the tires are used, as you can see, getting a little snap of oversteer. Getting a lot of oversteer there, as we have to be really careful not to invalidate. Pushing in, though. Doesn't look like we set a purple sector again. It really stinks I don't know any of these turn names. I apologize. So, yeah, just keeping this lap really cautious. Getting the apex there. Really on the limit again. I don't know how I don't get invalidations on some of these. You know, nonetheless in Q3 pushing hard to try and at least get a decent banker lap in again. Coming into here, we go really wide and we invalidate and nearly lose the car. Keep pushing on. Forget to turn the hot lap off. I think we turn it off here in a second. Just trying to push on and see what we could have ran, but we're going to obviously pull into the pits immediately. And put on those new softs and wait until the end of the qualifying session basically to go back out. So as you'll see, we're going to pull into the pits here as we finally turn off our hot lap ERS, which it doesn't matter, but yeah. Skipping back on to our final run of Q3. This is going to basically determine where we start in the race. So currently sitting at 10th. We need to get a good run here. Need to really be on the limit and use these new softs to our advantage. The grip level should be perfect. It's coming in. Braking just after the 100. Getting the car turned in nice. Getting a beautiful apex on both of these. Doesn't look like any wheel spin. Beautiful. So far, so good. Braking just at the 75, just before the 50, getting the car turned in. A little bit cautious, not as maybe jerky with the car as we were in the past, but taking a little A little more apex there, losing us a little bit of time. Again, trying to use as much of the track as we possibly can. Pushing on now. Braking just at the 50 board. Turning the car into 5th gear, short shifting so we can get a little better traction. And again, beautiful on the throttle there, just getting the power down as soon as we possibly can. Ooh, nearly hitting the wall. Again on the limit. Nearly hitting the wall again. That's why I love Jetta so much. It gets so close to the wall. And it's just so tight. You really gotta have to hope to put everything together. Coming here, another one of my favorite. Missing the apex. Making sure we don't invalidate this time. Again, we want to just get the car across the line as we had to, or as we invalidated last lap. So this lap wasn't terrible, but again, probably won't be as fast as our Q2 run was, unfortunately, but should still get us decently far up the grid as we come up to the line now. Let's see what it is. See if we have any comments. 4th place. 4th place, I'll take that. The lap was not the best. My Q2 lap was way better, but I'll take a P4. And yeah, as you can hear there, not really happy with the run, but P4 was where we're going to start. We ran a 128.8, and everybody else was pretty much right there. The 100% AI is kind of weird. It's you can get a 129.9s and then you're at the 128 at the top, so it's just a really weird split. But nonetheless, jumping into the race here, as you can see, it's a 1 out of 25 lap race, so it's a long race. Starting on the mediums with everyone else. Not getting the best start. Gonna go on the inside. George Russell here just leaves us enough room. We're gonna go around the outside as we have just a little more confidence, and that is up us back into P4 from a horrible start. Yeah, not gaining any positions, but also not losing any. Just more or less want to settle in, get a rhythm of what, just get into a rhythm more or less, and trying to find our own race pace. I knew I had a chance of winning this race. As you guys will probably see in the future, I'm not the fastest at every track, but I'm going to try to do my best to prepare. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of races where I'll either crash out or definitely not finish, sometimes even in the points. But there's also tracks such like Jeddah, even Bahrain, even though we got 6th, another track that I really enjoy. I'm starting to become pretty quick, so the races won't be boring. But sometimes I'll get a track like this where I just get crazy pace against the AI. And yeah, just not absolutely obliterate them, but definitely pound them. So moving on here, basically ending lap 1 here. Just getting into a rhythm, getting into the train. No need to be pushing crazy hard with our battery or anything like that, as it's a long race, and again we're already kind of catching them with the slipstream and not having to use as much ERS, more or less just on the exits. And again, like I said, I kind of knew that I had the pace, so I knew that if I just kept the battery off the starts or out of the exits, that I'd be able to keep up with the AI in the straights and everything like that, and eventually pass them. So yeah, just going a little bit wide again. I don't know how they're not counting me off for off tracks here. It's really strange to me. At one point I was even wondering if I had them on. I was trying to get a little nervous, so I think I accidentally took a invalidation, which will hopefully not cost us later, but I'm pretty sure I do. Just to make sure that I had the invalidations on, because that was pretty far off track and I didn't get counted for it. I don't know if the game just counted me as going wide, missing the turn, which was partially what happened, but yeah, nonetheless, continue on with no invalidations, luckily. And like I said earlier, I'm not going to be showcasing all the races. I just like to show the first few laps, because that's where a majority of the action will happen, and then obviously closer to the end of the race, and pit stops and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't want to bore you guys too much with all the boring racing stuff, because sometimes you can just kind of sit there in the train going for the pass on Perez here, and I apologize. And getting it done. Nice move. And that is us up into the podium places. P3, chasing Verstappen and Leclerc in P1. Verstappen had really crazy pace on both tires, as he obviously always does, but for some reason sometimes he just gets crazy pace on tires that you really shouldn't have as much pace. But yeah, chasing down Verstappen in the DRS. And that's just again where we want to maintain no need to be wasting too much battery, as I didn't see the point. We would want it later in the race, and I again knew we had the pace. Using it on the exits though, and yeah. Do you guys have any recommendations or anything like that? Obviously, I'm gonna try and get into league racing here very soon. This is why I actually do my career, to prepare myself for the longer races, to try and not crash, use the damage that they do and everything like that, and just get used to the tracks. You know, if you drive 25 laps around this track, you know, you'll start to kind of get some muscle memory. So I kind of think of this stuff as league race preparation, if you will. As yeah, you can hear Verstappen putting up the fastest lap of the race. I wasn't too worried about the fastest lap right now. I was more or less just worried about keeping up with the AI, because sometimes they can really just get rapid, especially in the straight line. So I didn't want to lose them, because I knew I could keep up with them through these sectors right here. And yeah, that's pretty much what we did. Just kind of sat in the train. We already dropped Perez behind, and we're starting to kind of form a pretty decently big gap, if you will, actually, to Hamilton and all those guys behind. Yeah, as you can see there at the top right, looks like we may have set a purple sector. Again, I can't tell as I'm colorblind, but we move. Also looks like we are beginning to catch Verstappen with the help of the DRS. Verstappen also having DRS and us catching is a big motivator for us. Told me that our setup was set up pretty decently. I was a little scared of the tire pressure. I think I should have upped them a little bit from qualifying to the race, but it wasn't horrible. This is a setup I found actually on Facebook. I'm in a group, and a guy posted some setups, and Jetto happened to be one of them. So yeah, used his setup before the race, and found that it was pretty quick. So I figured I'd use it for my career. As you can see here, a little bit of a dive somehow, going around the outside / inside of Verstappen and getting the move done. For being honest, I wasn't really prepared to make that move. I didn't even expect to make it myself, as crazy that sounds. I guess I just broke way later than him, or he just missed the... I don't know what happened, but we made a late move there, and nonetheless we got the move done. And now chasing our... Now chasing down our teammate. Using a bit of that battery so that way we don't lose that DRS. As you can see, we are almost a second out, but again, I knew I had the confidence to catch up to him through these sectors that are a little bit tighter. As you can see, our tire pressure, or our tire wear there, a little bit high for lap 5. But again, we are also on the mediums. I can only imagine what it would look like if we were on the softs. I was thinking about going hard to medium, but I think that would have ultimately just hurt my race more. Would have dropped me back a lot of places. And I also knew that I had the pace. So instead of dropping back places, I wanted to at least stay with the AI, if not pass them off the start, and try to hold a lead with the hard tires, because I knew I was going to be able to on this track. So I didn't see a point in putting myself in a disadvantage, especially being P4, starting on the hards and just losing a bunch of places to only try and gain them back later in the race. So yeah, I'm really happy that I made the right call here so far. Currently in P2 and chasing Leclerc, looking like we are trying to fix for a move. Obviously not in any of these sectors here, but on a straight. But yeah, just sticking behind him. Again, really using all of the track. Was starting to get a little skeptical, especially after seeing that in the turn 1 or the lap 2 incident, if the track invalidations were on. So yeah, at this point I was like, man, if I've messed this up, I'm just gonna restart the season, because like I said, my Bahrain footage got corrupted or something, and not having the track invalidations on would have killed me. So moving on here, lap 6. Right behind Leclerc, using all of the track again. Making sure we get our apexes. As we're going to push for Leclerc, but we're getting out of the slipstream and don't even have the DRS turned on because we don't want to pass him on the straight. Obviously, as you guys know, Jeddah is, of course, notorious for those 3 DRS zones back to back to back. And if you want to try and gain any sort of lead, so we're going for the pass here now, we just completely fly by him around him on the racing line. We're going to get that move done. Go a bit deep. But yeah, nonetheless, we keep the move. Get the move done. And that puts us up into P1. And at this point, I wasn't really sure if I should try and push to try and break out of the ERS. Of course, you know, that would probably be the smartest thing. But I didn't know if, at this point, with the tire degradation again, that is where I started to really get nervous that I didn't have the track limits on. But I didn't want to use all my battery with the, you know, the tires starting to get really worn out, and use all my battery and just leave myself screwed for the rest of the race. So I tried to see if I could try and do it with raw pace, with a little bit of battery, because they're gonna have DRS with me right now, or on me this close. But I wanted to see if my race pace slash setup could potentially break away from the AI. So again, just using the ERS here right now because they're so close, and I'm not that fast at that particular turn. Just trying to make sure Leclerc stays behind us, which he does. This is where it's going to become crucial to get a good exit. Use a little bit of the battery. Doesn't even look like we are using the battery, which is a bit ballsy, but Leclerc is not catching fast. Only at the end of the straight, and I was going to let him go, but he goes a bit wide, and I was able to stick it all around the outside. And yeah, at this point I figured out that after he had tried going for that move, that he probably wasn't going to have another move on him. So I figured at this point I'm going to try and break out of the DRS with raw pace, trying to take this sector as fast as I can with the tire wear that I've got. Doing it decently, and I mean, again, that is probably the 4th time now that I've really gone wide at that exact turn. And I should be getting invalidated. I should have a 3-second time penalty, truthfully, but not getting a singular warning. So yeah, I was thinking about pausing and checking, because I was starting to get a little scared. And like I said, that would have really ruined my season, my career season already. Even though we're in 6th place, and after this race, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't really know what I was gonna go with that. Kind of moving on here. Skipping on to lap 9, just a whole lap later. Going to be moving on to lap 10. This is the reason why we skipped, is because you guys will see here in a second. My suspicions, if you will, were confirmed. In a good way. I don't really know how to phrase that correctly right now. But you guys will see why I skipped from, you know, just a lap to this. Go a bit wide here. And again, we're already skeptical that the track limits aren't on. But coming through here now, we get our first track limits warning. So I was actually really relieved, believe it or not, to see that. Not because I got a warning, but just to know that I didn't have the settings messed up. But yeah, this game kind of showing a little RNG. been kind of going about the same distance of wide through that turn that we got our first warning at, and I was surprised that it, after all those going wide and everything like that, I was just now getting a warning. So that kind of, you know, again, goes to the whole RNG thing. It's just at random almost. And as we have a horrible turn here, that's going to have Leclerc very close to DRS, but we're going to just pump on the ERS and again just pump him right back to the 1.2, 1.3 seconds just to make sure we're safe. And again, skipping on another lap. Leclerc is now 2.7 seconds behind. They could be looking to box as we are actually looking to box. And I think this was the right call. The tires were starting to get a little worn. Was starting to get a lot of understeer and oversteer. A lot of wheel spin. So I think switching to the hards at this lap was the right call, as you can see, for Verstappen. And I think a good majority of the field follows us in, actually. So not saying we triggered the pit stop, but being the first one in, looks like we potentially triggered the first of the pit stops. So we're going to see what happens coming out in some clean air in P5. As you can see, just trying to get the tires warm a little bit. These hard tires are going to be an absolute nightmare to get up to temperature, and especially going through this sector first on very cold hard tires is just absolutely miserable. You've really got to be really careful. One, not to invalidate, but two, not spin off, and three, you know, the tires are just going to be slipping and sliding everywhere. They are ice cold. So yeah, you just got to make sure you don't bend it, and just really try to work the heat into the tires as quickly as possible, because you don't want to lose time driving like a baby with the hard tires, because you know you're just going to lose yourself time. So Verstappen about 2.7 seconds behind. That's about where Leclerc was whenever we went into the pits. So Verstappen gaining a little bit of time on us, but not too much, as Leclerc now boxes. And again, I think we are going to be, we were the wave of pit. You know, it's just a long race, and it's an obvious to win to box. But you know, I can only imagine if we had gone on that, Leclerc would have continued on. Not that obviously he did, but he could have continued on. The whole field could have potentially continued on, or they would have triggered the pit wave. So back into P1 here, as everyone has boxed. We're going to have Leclerc behind us right now. Not sure if Verstappen overtakes him. Looking like a couple people are dropping through the order. I couldn't quite see who that was. And it looks like we're starting to finally get a little more heat into these tires, a little more confidence, which is good. Excuse me, got a phone call there. So, second lap out with the hard tires. Looks like we could have set a fastest first sector. So, you know, just trying to break as much of a time gap as we can from second place to us. In case we invalidate, as you guys can see, we are now running a second fastest sector. So looks like we're going for the fastest lap here. Pushing pretty hard. Braking just after the 100 board at the 75. Getting the car nicely on the apex. And getting a beautiful exit. Cranking on the battery to help us get that fastest lap. Coming across the line. It's going to be a 1:31.8, which is not bad for hard tires in Jeddah. But yeah, we're going to stick on here just a little longer. I can't quite remember what exactly happened. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was really happy with how I was driving so far. I think I'll, in the next video, show you guys my settings, just so you guys can see that I'm not using any flashbacks or any settings or anything like that. Just want to make sure I'm as open and honest as I am with this series. So yeah, I'll make sure I have that stuff in the next video whether it's at the end or the beginning. But yeah, so far, only one warning. Tires are at about 9% on the rear, which is not 100% perfect, but, you know, not bad in any way. Just, you know, got to make sure we manage them. Again, missing the apex there. And you have to really be careful on that exit there. If you run your tires over that curb out there and spin them, you could really go for a serious spin. So, yeah, moving on here now to lap 17. Again, just, you know, maintaining the gap, about 4 seconds to Verstappen, as he and Perez actually overtook Leclerc. Not quite sure what happened there, but nonetheless, we've got Verstappen chasing us now. And at this point, I'm just trying to save my tires. You know, I don't need to do anything stupid. I got a nice gap. Just need to make sure I'm consistent, fluent. As you can see there, we got our second warning. So another warning, we'll have a 3-second time penalty, which would not be ideal, but also somewhat okay. So we get a little bit of a slide there out of the exit. But we don't want to get a 3-second time penalty, obviously, because that'll drop us down the order. But as you guys know and see, we got a 4.4 second gap to Verstappen. So at that point, after knowing that I have my second invalidation, that I could have a potential 3-second time penalty, I was making sure that I was maintaining the gap of 4 seconds or higher. So that's kind of why I'm using a little bit of the battery. Just trying to build as much of a gap between me and Verstappen in case I am to invalidate, which with the tires starting to slowly fall off lap after lap, as you can see, they're just really getting a little bit of understeer through that turn. I knew that was going to get worse and worse as the laps went on. So if I am to invalidate, I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of a cushion to make sure that I maintained my first place, because we could really use this first place for the championship fight. So as you can see there, can't quite read it, 22%, 20% on the rears, and about 19 on the front. So like I said, this track is really good about eating the tires. As we get our 3-second time penalty, our third warning is, again, we were just talking, thankfully we have a 4.9 second gap, but now this gives us free roam. We have essentially no warnings, even though we have a 3-second penalty. We have no warnings again. So a clean slate, and that gave me a little thought to push. You know, try and get a little aggressive, build as much of a gap, use a little more of the battery pack, and just try to build that gap in case we have any mistakes or anything like that. We have ourselves a cushion, because again, we could really, for the championship fight, really use this first place win. So just making sure we're cautious, try to preserve the tires a little bit, but also using the battery to, you know, just build that gap up. I knew my setup on the straights were fast if they were not using ERS or had the DRS, which with Verstappen being behind us the whole time, I obviously knew that he didn't have DRS. So I just knew that if I used a little bit of the battery here and there on the exits and just had a fastest, we set the fastest lap of 1:31.6. If we just maintained our pace that we're riding at right now, again, sorry, skipping on to our final lap, maintaining the pace, as you can see, we did. Actually getting a little more time, we'd be okay. So yeah, coming on to our final lap here. Sorry about the mumble jumble throughout this series, but final lap. I just knew I had to bring the car home at this point. I knew Verstappen was going to be pushing hard, but to gain almost 4 or 5 seconds on me in the span of a lap, I knew was going to be impossible. So I just had to keep it on track, keep it clean. We didn't invalidate anymore, so I pretty much had free roam to, you know, kind of push the car a little bit. As you can see there, somehow not getting an invalidation, but having free roam and just not being scared and pushing that battery pack to the end, because I knew Verstappen would be too. And we didn't want to lose, you know, a second or two possibly just for not using the battery pack. So as you'll see on every exit, we are going to be deploying the battery just a little bit, just again to ensure getting nice and close to the wall there, using all of the apex there, and just being pretty conservative. Wasn't too much on the edge there, but at the same token wasn't too worried about invalidating here. Nice apex, and just taking these final couple turns real nice and neat. Again, using the last bit of the battery because, well, it's the end of the race and there's no point. As you can see, Verstappen is draining that battery, and that's what I was worried of. But nonetheless, we were able to maintain the gap the whole race, and coming on to here, I'm sure I'm going to have some comments. We will finally win our first race.
Let's go, baby.
It took a lot of preparation and practice, but I'm so happy it all paid off, truthfully.
Absolutely fantastic. That is a brilliant result. Well done.
Did we bring home fastest lap too?
That's a fantastic performance from Ferrari. It hardly
So yeah,
was in doubt.
there you guys have it. I'll have the standings up on the end screen here. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.